The brochure was tucked inside a birthday card. That's the part I keep coming back to. My daughter didn't hand it to me across a table or slide it through the mail slot. She wrapped it inside a card with a watercolor cardinal on the front, my mother's favorite bird, and set it beside my coffee cup at brunch like it was a gift. "We just thought you'd want to have a look," she said. "They have a beautiful sunroom." I turned the card over in my hands first. The cardinal was painted in that soft, washed-out style, wings slightly open, mid-song. Inside, my daughter had written, "Happy birthday, Mom. We love you and we want what's best for you." Below that, folded in thirds, was a glossy brochure for a place called Heatherwood Gardens Senior Living, located in Burlington, Ontario, 40 minutes from my house. I set it on the table next to my water glass. "I'm 68, I said. "Mom, 68 isn't what it used to be." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. Across the white tablecloth, the little vase of carnations, the basket of sourdough neither of us had touched. She was watching me the way you watch someone you've already made a decision about. "I went for a run on Tuesday," I told her. "I know, 5 kilometers, I know." Mom picked up my coffee. I drank it. I looked at the brochure, Heatherwood Gardens, assisted living tailored to your needs, starting at $5,200 per month. A photo of a bright dining room, round tables with fresh flowers, elderly people in cardigans playing cards. A photo of the sunroom she mentioned, wicker chairs, a fern in the corner, a woman staring at a bird feeder with both hands folded in her lap. I set the brochure back down. "Who else knows about this?" I asked. She looked at her husband, who was suddenly very interested in his eggs Benedict. "Your brother thinks it's a reasonable conversation to have." She said so. Both of them. Let me tell you something about my house. I bought it in 1997, the year after my divorce was finalized, with money I'd saved across 11 years of teaching high school English in Oakville. It's a semi-detached on a quiet street in Hamilton. 2 bedrooms, a garden I've spent 23 years building from clay soil into something that actually blooms, and a spare room I turned into a reading nook when my children finally stopped needing it. It is mine. My name. My mortgage, paid off in 2018. Mine. My daughter's name is not on a single document inside that house. My son-in-law's name is even less so. And yet, when I got home that Sunday afternoon and sat down at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, I found myself pulling out the brochure again. Not because I was considering it. I wasn't. Not for a single second. But because when your own child hands you something like that, wrapped in a birthday card with a cardinal on the front, you want to understand why. What she was thinking. What she thought would happen next. My daughter and her husband own a condo in Mississauga. My name is not on that property either. They bought it in 2019, a 2-bedroom on the 14th floor, for $610,000. I know this because my daughter called me the night they got the keys, thrilled, telling me about the view of the lake. I started paying attention in a way I hadn't before. I don't go looking for trouble. I never have. I was the kind of mother who showed up to every school play, drove every carpool route, made every birthday cake from scratch. When my marriage ended, I didn't fall apart. I went back to work full-time. I kept the house. I raised 2 kids by myself in a city where nothing is cheap. And I did it without asking anyone for anything I wasn't prepared to give back. I am not a woman who falls apart, but I am also not a woman who ignores things. The week after that brunch, I called my son. He lives in Calgary now, works in oil and gas project management. He and I have always been closer than he and his sister. He has my stubbornness and his father's charm, which is a difficult combination, but never a boring one. I'd expected him to be sheepish. To apologize, maybe. To say he just nodded along because it was easier. He wasn't sheepish. "Mom, I think Gwen and Derek are just worried," he said. "We all are." Worried about what? "I just told you, I ran 5 kilometers on Tuesday. It's not about running." "Mom, then what is it about?" A pause. The kind of pause that tells you someone has already had this conversation with someone else and they're trying to remember the script. "You're alone in that house," he said. "If something happened, I've been alone in this house for 27 years. Nothing has happened. We just think you should at least look at the options." I said goodbye. I sat with that word for a long time. We, He said we. Something had shifted, and I didn't yet know what it was sitting on top of. I found out 6 weeks later, on a Tuesday afternoon, because of a property tax notice. I'd switched to online statements years ago, but the city still sends paper notices for certain things, and this one came addressed to my home. I opened it the way I open everything. Standing at the kitchen counter with my reading glasses on, sorting through the usual pile of flyers and bills. The notice was standard. But something on it stopped me. The mailing had been rerouted. It showed a forwarding address request had been submitted for my property, not for my mail in general, but specifically for property-related documents, to an address in Mississauga. My daughter's address. I read it 3 times. Then I called a lawyer. Her name is Beverly. She's been my lawyer since the refinance in 2014. A small, no-nonsense woman who has handled everything from my updated will to the dispute with a contractor over my back fence. I called her office and asked for an urgent appointment. She fit me in on Thursday. I brought the notice. I also brought every piece of property documentation I had. My deed, my mortgage discharge, my home insurance policy, my last three years of property tax receipts. I spread them on her desk like I was laying out a hand of cards. Beverly looked at the forwarding notice. Then she looked at me. "Did you authorize this?" she said. "No. Has anyone had access to your personal documents? SIN? Date of birth? Any account numbers?" I thought about it. My daughter had a key to my house. All my children did, for emergencies. She'd stayed with me for a long weekend in February while Derek was away for work. She'd helped me set up a new laptop. I'd stepped out to the garden for an hour while she was inside. I said all of this to Beverly. Beverly picked up her phone. What Beverly explained to me over the next 2 hours I want to be very precise about, because I know, from friends, from my own experience watching my mother age, that financial elder abuse is not a dramatic thing. It doesn't always look like someone stealing a purse. Sometimes it looks like a forwarding address. Sometimes it looks like a well-meaning visit to help set up a new laptop. The forwarding request, Beverly told me, was almost certainly a precursor. Not the crime itself, but the groundwork. If someone wanted to take out a home equity line of credit against a property they didn't own, they would first need to intercept any bank or legal correspondence related to that property. They would need to control the flow of information. The HELOC itself, Beverly said, would require your signature, or a forged one. Could they do that? She looked at me steadily. It's been done before. I drove home very carefully. I had the particular kind of calm that only comes when the adrenaline hasn't found anywhere to go yet. The kind where you're doing every small task correctly, signaling every lane change, hands at 10 and 2, because the alternative is pulling over and shaking. When I got inside, I made tea. I sat down. I thought about the brochure in the birthday card. The cardinal. "Happy birthday, Mom. We love you and we want what's best for you." I thought about my son on the phone saying we. I thought about Heatherwood Gardens, $5,200 a month. Wicker chairs. A woman with folded hands staring at a bird feeder. And then I thought, what exactly happens to my house if I go there? Beverly moved quickly once I gave her permission to. She placed a title protection alert on my property through the province, a step I didn't know was possible, and which I now tell every woman I know over the age of 60 to do immediately. It flags any attempts to change, transfer, or encumber the title and requires identity verification beyond the standard documentation. It doesn't cost much. It takes 20 minutes. It is the single most useful thing I've done for myself in years. She also sent a formal letter to the address in Mississauga, my daughter's address, noting that the forwarding request had been identified and rescinded, and that any further attempts to redirect correspondence related to my property would be treated as an attempt at fraud. My daughter called me that evening. "Mom, what did you do?" "I protected my property," I said, "the same way I've always protected everything. You sent us a legal letter. Beverly sent it. I authorized it." A pause, then her voice shifted, lower, more careful, the way it does when she's deciding how angry to be. "We were just trying to help you think about your options." "No," I said. "You were trying to intercept my property documents. Those are 2 different things." Silence. "I want to understand something." I said. Derek's business has had some trouble this year, hasn't it? Another silence, longer this time. My daughter and her husband are not broke. But Derek had started a renovation contracting company in 2021, and it had not gone the way he'd planned. I knew this in the vague way you know things about children who don't tell you everything. A comment here, an absence there. Their visits becoming less frequent in the way visits do when people are embarrassed. He'd mentioned a line of credit at Christmas. He'd been quieter than usual. I had added this up slowly, across months, and hadn't let myself believe what the sum suggested. Parents often don't. We look at our children and we see the age they were when they needed us, not the age they are now when they've decided we're the ones who need managing. It's not what you think, my daughter said finally. Then tell me what it is. She didn't. I spent 2 weeks doing things that my daughter would describe, if she knew about them, as dramatic. I don't see them as dramatic. I see them as what any sensible woman does when she discovers that the people she raised are circling her assets. I updated my will with Beverly. I removed the provision that gave my daughter first right of refusal on the house in the event of my death. I established a trust. I named my financial advisor, a woman named Constance, who I've worked with for 12 years and trust more than I trust most people I've shared meals with, as one of the trustees. I put the house itself into the trust structure Beverly recommended, which in Ontario provides a layer of legal protection that a simple will does not. I also had a long, honest conversation with my bank's fraud department. They flagged my accounts. They noted the situation. They told me what to watch for. And then I did something I'd been considering for 3 weeks, but hadn't let myself commit to. I called a real estate agent, not about my house, about my daughter's condo. I want to be very clear. I did not own my daughter's condo. I had no authority over it whatsoever. But I had, when they were struggling to qualify for the mortgage in 2019, co-signed the purchase. It was a quiet favor the kind parents do. My name was on the original purchase documentation as a co-signer, which meant that while I had no ownership, I did have certain rights relating to occupancy should the mortgage go into default. The mortgage had not gone into default, but I had received, through the forwarded documents that came to my address before Beverly stopped the redirect, a notice of arrears. 2 months, $3,840. I sat with that information. I sat with the birthday card with the cardinal on it. Then I called the real estate agent. Her name was Philippa. She was brisk and efficient, and did not ask me many personal questions, which I appreciated. I told her I was looking to understand the market value of a unit I'd co-signed on in Mississauga, and whether there were any steps a co-signer could take if payments were in arrears. There were. Philippa was very helpful. The second brunch was my daughter's idea. She called 2 weeks after the legal letter and proposed it in a tone that was careful and conciliatory. She'd chosen a place in downtown Hamilton, close to my neighborhood, somewhere I knew. Neutral ground, I suppose. She said Derek wouldn't come, that she wanted it to just be the two of us. My son called that morning to say he was driving down from the airport. He had a layover in Toronto, he said, and he wanted to be there. So there were 3 of us at the table. The restaurant was warm and a little loud, a weekend brunch crowd, the kind of place where you can talk without feeling like everyone can hear you. We ordered. We made small talk about the drive, about the weather. It was November. The first real cold snap, the street outside the window, glazed with that particular flat gray light Hamilton gets in autumn. My daughter had brought a folder. I had brought a manila envelope. We looked at each other's items on the table, and neither of us acknowledged them immediately. My son ordered orange juice. He looked tired from the flight. He looked like he wasn't sure whose side he'd driven here to be on. "Mom," my daughter started. "I want to explain. Let me go first," I said. She stopped. "I know about the arrears," I said. "On the condo. 2 months." She looked at Derek. Then she remembered Derek wasn't there. "I know about Derek's business," I said. "I know why you started thinking about Heatherwood. You needed me to sell my house. My house sells. There's inheritance to talk about. You get your share. You pay off the line of credit. You cover the arrears. And in the meantime, I'm in a sunroom somewhere staring at a bird feeder." She didn't deny it. I'll give her that. We were desperate, she said, and her voice cracked on the word in a way that was genuine, I think. Whatever else my daughter is, she has never been someone who could fake that particular sound. I know you were desperate, I said. But you tried to redirect my mail. You were laying groundwork, Gwen, Beverly said. We weren't going to forge anything, she said sharply. We didn't know what we were doing. Derek found some information online about HELOCs, and he got an idea, and it was a bad idea, and it didn't go anywhere because you stopped it. My son was very quiet. What did you know? I asked him. He looked at his orange juice. I knew they were struggling. I didn't know about the mail thing. I swear to you, I didn't know about that. I looked at him for a long moment. He is not a good liar. He never has been, not since he was 7, and tried to blame the broken patio door on the wind. His eyes do a thing when he's uncomfortable. They were doing the thing. But you signed on to the Heatherwood plan, I said. You backed the idea of getting me evaluated, getting me moved. I backed the conversation, he said. Not the. He stopped. I backed it more than I should have. The food came. Nobody ate. I reached into the manila envelope. I took out 3 things and placed them on the table, in a row, between the bread basket and the salt shaker. The first was a copy of my updated will. Not the whole document, just the summary page, showing that it had been revised and that the new provisions were in place. The second was a letter from Beverly confirming the title protection alert and the trust structure. The third was a letter from Philippa, the real estate agent. It outlined the current market value of a 2-bedroom condo in Mississauga, $618,000, according to comparable recent sales, and detailed the rights of a co-signer in the event of mortgage default, including the option to initiate a sale proceeding to recover the co-signed debt. I put my hands flat on the table. I haven't filed anything, I said. I'm not here to punish you. I'm here because you are my children, and I would like, very much, to not spend the rest of my life watching my back around you. So here is what I need. I laid it out clearly. Derek needed to contact his bank this week and formalize a repayment plan. My daughter needed to sign a letter, prepared by Beverly, acknowledging that she had no claim on my property. My son needed to stay out of things he wasn't prepared to fully understand. In return, I would remove my name from the condo's co-sign documentation once the arrears were cleared, freeing both of us, and I would not pursue any further legal action related to the mail redirection. My daughter stared at the Philippa letter. You'd actually initiate a sale on our home? She said. I would very much prefer not to, I said. Which is why I'm asking for what I've asked for and nothing more. A long silence. My son exhaled slowly through his nose. Derek's going to hate this, my daughter said. Derek, I said, doesn't really have much standing to hate anything right now. The letter was signed 11 days later. My daughter dropped it off in person. She didn't call ahead, just appeared at my door on a Wednesday morning, holding the envelope and an apology that was about 60% genuine and 40% relief. I accepted both. My son called from Calgary that evening. He said he was sorry. He said it twice. I told him I believed the first one. Derek did not call. I did not expect him to. Beverly filed the paperwork removing me from the condo cosign in February, once the arrears had been cleared. That process took 3 months, involved 2 separate bank conversations, and was administered with Constance's involvement to make sure my own finances remained clean throughout. I drove to Beverly's office to sign the final documents on a Thursday afternoon in early March, when the snow was just starting to soften and there were chickadees at the feeder outside her window. I signed. I thanked her. I drove home. I made tea. I sat in my reading nook, the one that used to be a spare room, the one my children stopped needing, and I looked out at the garden where nothing was growing yet, but everything was about to. My house is in a trust now. My will is updated. My accounts are flagged and my title is protected. I know the name of the fraud unit at my bank. I know Beverly's mobile number, and I know that Constance reviews my statements every quarter without being asked. I am not angry. Exactly, I have moved past the part where I replay the birthday card in my mind and feel the particular coldness of it. I still have the cardinal. I tucked it back into a drawer. Not because I've forgiven it, but because it is mine, too, in the end. Everything that happened to me is mine. My daughter calls on Sundays now. We talk about ordinary things. What she's cooking, what's happening at her work, whether I've seen the new documentary on CBC. We don't talk about Heatherwood. We don't talk about the brochure. I went for a run this morning. 6 kilometers, up through the park and back along the escarpment trail, the city spread out below me in that particular early spring haze that I have loved my entire adult life. My lungs were good. My legs were good. I am 68 years old and my house is mine, and I am not going anywhere.